You ever have that moment where you walk into your own home, the place you've worked your tail off to pay for, only to find people sitting there like they own it, feet up, drinks in hand, not a single ounce of shame on their faces? Yeah, that was me, just 3 weeks ago. But before I get to the part where I almost lost it, and the part where I didn't, let me rewind a bit, because this wasn't just some random squatter situation. No, this was personal. This was family. My name's Noah. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent the last 8 years working as a mechanical engineer for a logistics firm that contracts with overseas shipping companies. Sounds fancy, but in reality, it means I spend a lot of time in port cities fixing problems nobody else wants to deal with. I've spent months at a time in places like Singapore, Rotterdam, and Buenos Aires. Long nights, short weekends, and a phone that never stops ringing. But I've done well for myself. Bought a condo back when I was 28. Nothing massive, but a clean, 2-bedroom unit in a nice part of town, overlooking the park and walking distance from everything. Paid off most of the mortgage in 4 years. Kept the place in pristine condition, and when I got sent overseas again 6 months ago for a new project, I left everything in order. I even had one of those smart home locks installed, gave a backup code to my mom in case of emergencies, and assumed that was the responsible, adult thing to do. Now, before you think I'm naive, let me explain a bit about my family. My mom, Elena, is what I'd call a selective nurturer. She dotes on my sister, Claire, who's 35, like she's still the homecoming queen trying to win prom court again. But when it comes to me, I'm the independent one. The one who doesn't need help. Which, to be fair, I don't. But that doesn't mean it doesn't sting when you get a half-hearted, "That's nice, honey," for a promotion while your sister gets a full celebration complete with balloons for remembering to pay her phone bill on time. Claire's always been the golden child, despite a track record that, let's just say, wouldn't impress many employers. 2 failed marriages, a handful of jobs she quit because they didn't vibe with her energy, and a tendency to treat consequences like a suggestion. But somehow, in my mom's eyes, she could do no wrong. Still, I've managed to stay on good terms with both of them. Or so I thought. The first hint that something was off came during one of our weekly video calls while I was still stationed in Yokohama. I remember the exact moment. Actually, I was standing on my tiny balcony overlooking the bay, sun just starting to set, sipping the worst instant coffee imaginable while waiting for the call to connect. Mom answered with her usual distracted energy, glancing at something off-screen. "Hey, sweetheart, how's Japan?" she asked, but her voice was tight, like she was trying to sound casual and failing miserably. "Pretty good. Long hours, but I'm learning a lot. The crew here's solid. You good?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, we're fine, just busy. Claire's been staying with me a while." My eyebrows lifted. "Everything okay with her and Matt?" There was a pause. "They're separating. She's filing for divorce." "Again," I said, before I could stop myself. "That's her second one, right?" Mom gave me that look, the one where her lips tightened like she just bit into a lemon. "It's not her fault, Noah. He turned out to be very manipulative. She needed to get out." I nodded slowly. "Okay, I hope she's all right." "She's strong," Mom replied quickly, then shifted the camera a little, revealing Claire in the background, lounging on the couch with a glass of wine in one hand and what looked like my old university hoodie draped over her shoulders. She noticed the camera on her and gave a little wave. "Hey bro," she said lazily. "Your place still has that air purifier in the bedroom? I'm allergic to dust now, apparently." I blinked. "Wait, what do you mean, my place?" Claire smirked. "Oh, you didn't tell him yet," she said to Mom, not even bothering to mute herself. "Tell me what?" Mom cleared her throat and glanced at Claire before looking back at me. "Sweetheart, don't panic. It's just temporary, okay? We needed a quiet place for Claire while she figures things out. My apartment is too small, and the neighbors have been complaining about noise." "Wait, what are you saying? You let her stay at my condo?" "It was just sitting there," Mom said, defensive now. "And you're not using it." It made sense. She's going through a lot. I could feel the heat rising in my chest. "Did you ask me? Or did you just use the code I gave you?" Mom sighed. "It's not a big deal. It's family. She's not trashing the place or anything. You'll be back in a few months, and it'll all be sorted by then." I should have said more. I should have demanded they get out, or changed the code, or called the building manager right then and there. But I didn't. I was 6,000 miles away with a 14-hour workday ahead of me and a team relying on me not to lose my cool. So I took a breath, forced a smile, and said, "Okay, temporary. That's all." Claire raised her glass on camera. "Thanks, little bro." The call ended 5 minutes later, and I remember just standing there, phone in my hand, staring at the tiny digital koi swimming in the smart pond below. Something didn't sit right with me, and that was the beginning. Over the next few weeks, the updates became fewer and shorter. Mom would dodge questions about the condo. Claire stopped popping into the background. I started noticing weird changes when I checked my smart home app. Lights being used at strange hours, thermostat settings constantly fluctuating, and once, oddly, the kitchen camera being disabled for 2 days straight. I even got a building notification about a pet-related complaint, which made no sense because I've never owned one. Every time I brought it up, Mom brushed it off. "Claire's fine," she'd say. "She's being respectful. Don't stress yourself." But I could hear the edge in her voice, like she was hiding something. And then one day, I got a call from my bank. It was routine at first, just a notice about an update to my mortgage account. I thought maybe it was a new statement or rate change. But as the woman on the phone spoke, something clicked in my gut. "We've processed the transfer to Ms. Claire Monroe as authorized by the warranty deed submitted last week." I sat down. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" She repeated it, and this time I caught every word. My sister's name. A transfer. A warranty deed. My head started spinning. "I didn't authorize any transfer," I said. "I'm the sole owner of that property." There was a pause, and then, "Oh, I see. Well, the paperwork was signed by Elena Monroe as power of attorney, notarized, and submitted via courier." My stomach dropped, and that's when it all started unraveling. But I didn't react, not yet. I asked for a copy of the documents. Then I called a friend who works in real estate law. Then I booked the first flight home. When I landed a week later and walked into my own condo, jet-lagged but wired with adrenaline, they were already there. Claire on my couch, Mom perched in my armchair like some regal guest, both of them laughing about something on Claire's phone. Claire looked up first. "Oh hey, look who finally decided to show up." Mom smiled faintly. "Welcome back, sweetheart." I didn't say a word, just dropped my bags at the door, pulled out my phone, and opened the voice memo app. Claire's voice still echoed in my ears as I stood by the door of my own condo. "What's so funny?" she had asked. And I had grinned. Not because I found any of it amusing. Far from it. I grinned because I already knew this wasn't going to be a confrontation. It was going to be a revelation. But before I could reach that point, before I could play the card I was holding in my pocket, I had to let this thing unfold just a little more. Sometimes, the best way to expose the rot is to let it keep growing, until it can't hide anymore. I stepped into the living room, slowly, casually, like I had all the time in the world. Claire was sprawled on the couch, her feet propped on the coffee table, my coffee table, which now had a new, deep scratch along the edge. A takeout container sat on the armrest. Her wine glass was half full. Mom sat cross-legged in the armchair, nursing a cup of chamomile tea like she was the queen of some twisted castle. Neither of them looked the least bit uncomfortable. "Nice to see you both," I said, my voice even. "You got a haircut," Mom replied, like that was the pressing matter. "I always liked it a bit longer, but it's fine." Claire gave a lazy smile. "You're not going to freak out, are you? Because I'm not in the mood for one of your responsibility lectures." "I'm not here to lecture anyone," I said. I dropped my bag by the door, walked over to the fridge, and opened it. Inside were things I didn't recognize. Vegan cheese, oat milk, leftover Thai food in containers I'd never bought, and a few bottles of kombucha. I spotted one of my pre-prepped frozen meal packs shoved all the way to the back, half open and frostbitten. My fridge used to be organized. Now it looked like someone had tried, and failed, to live out their wellness influencer dreams. I closed it without a word. "Look," Claire said, setting her glass down with a little clink. "I know you're probably a little thrown off, but it's not like you were using the place." I turned slowly toward her. "How long have you been living here?" She shrugged. "Since February, I think. Whenever that whole mat mess started. Honestly, it's been a blur." "February," I echoed. That meant she'd been here for nearly 4 months. "And you didn't think to ask me? Or tell me?" She scoffed. "I talked to Mom. She said it was fine. You always make such a big deal about everything. You weren't here. I needed a place. What's the issue?" I stared at her, then at my mother. Mom hadn't said a word since the tea comment. She was pretending to be absorbed in her drink, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. She knew I was close to boiling over. "You used the emergency access code I gave you to," What, sneak her in? I asked. It wasn't sneaking, Mom finally said. I'm your mother, Noah. I have your best interests at heart. And Claire needed a safe space. I wasn't going to let her be out on the street. She could have gotten an Airbnb. Or stayed with you. She did stay with me, Mom said sharply. But I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with thin walls, and I have a neighbor who starts banging on the ceiling the second she hears a pin drop. It wasn't feasible. And this place, she gestured around her like she was describing some royal estate. This was just sitting empty. You weren't even renting it out. That's because it's my home, I said, louder than I intended. I didn't want anyone else in it. Claire rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You sound so dramatic. I took a step toward them. You forged documents, Claire. That made them both freeze. What are you talking about? Claire asked, her smile faltering. You filed a warranty deed with my name removed and yours added. Submitted through a courier. Notarized. And according to the bank, processed by someone using power of attorney. Silence. Mom's voice was soft. You weren't here. We couldn't reach you for a while. It was temporary. No, I cut her off. You don't get to call it temporary when you try to legally transfer ownership. That's not a misunderstanding. That's theft. Claire stood up, arms crossed. Relax. It was just to help me with the divorce stuff. Matt's lawyer kept saying I didn't have any assets, and he was pushing for spousal support. We needed to show that I had property. On paper. That's all. I blinked. You what? It's not like I was going to keep it, she snapped. It was just to show the court that I had stability, that I could take care of myself. So they'd back off on the financials. Mom helped me. She had the authority. You gave yourself my home as a prop in your divorce hearing, I said slowly, like I was trying to convince myself this was a dream. Claire actually nodded. Exactly. See, you get it. You always were logical. I laughed. Actually laughed. It wasn't joyful. It was hollow, sharp, a sound that came from a place between disbelief and fury. You used my house to lie in court, I said. You falsified legal documents. That's fraud. Oh my God, stop being so self-righteous. Claire burst out. It's not like I sold the place. You've got good money coming in. You don't even need this place. I needed help. Mom helped me. You weren't even reachable for a while. I was reachable, I said through gritted teeth. You just didn't want to ask. Because you knew I'd say no. That's why Mom stepped in, Claire shot back. Because you're always so rigid. It's always about your boundaries and your space and your rules. You don't make exceptions for family. You never have. My voice dropped to a whisper. And you think you do? You think family means doing whatever you want to whoever you want because it's convenient for you. Noah, Mom said quietly, it wasn't malicious. We just didn't know what else to do. You're not even married. You don't have kids. This place could have been a new start for your sister. A new start. I snapped. This place isn't a therapy session, Mom. It's not a fresh slate to hand out like a gift card. I earned this. Every tile, every appliance, every payment. I earned it. Mom looked away. Claire muttered, wow. Just wow. You always think you're the victim. No, I said, voice calm again. But I think I'm done being the backup plan. Or the silent ATM. I walked over to my bookshelf. Well, what used to be my bookshelf. Half the books were gone, replaced with pop psychology titles and vision boards. A framed photo of Claire and Mom sat on the top shelf. I picked it up, stared at it, and quietly set it back down. And then I did something I didn't think I would. I said, all right, you want to play house here? Go ahead. Claire's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I mean, don't let me get in your way. I grabbed my phone. Just know, every step you've taken has been recorded. Every camera, every login, every lock code used. And I've already sent everything to my lawyer, including the property transfer. Mom's hand went to her mouth. You didn't. I did, I said. Because unlike you two, I think before I act. Claire's face twisted. You're really going to sue us? Your own family. I'm going to do what's right, I said, stepping toward the door. I just wanted to give you the chance to be honest. But I see now that was a waste of time. And then I opened the door to leave. And that's when Claire screamed. Wait. You can't. I'm still waiting on the hearing date. If the court finds out. But I didn't answer. Not yet. Because what I found just outside that door made me freeze. It wasn't a person. It was an envelope. Thick. Heavy. Hand-delivered. And when I opened it, standing right there in the hallway, my hands trembling, I saw something that made my jaw clench harder than ever before. A second deed. Signed. Sealed. Filed. And this time, Mom's name was on it, not Claire's. My mother had transferred the condo to herself, behind Claire's back, and suddenly, the real betrayal snapped into focus. I stood there in the hallway, the envelope in my hands suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My eyes scanned the document again and again, willing it to be some kind of mistake. But there it was, in black ink and neatly notarized. The new owner of the condo wasn't Claire. It was Elena Monroe, my mother. For a moment, my mind went blank. Then, as if on cue, I heard the soft click of the front door behind me opening, followed by Claire's voice, tight, irritated. "Noah, don't walk away like that. We need to talk. You can't just—" I didn't even turn around. I held up the envelope, still facing the hallway. "Did you know?" I asked. Silence. I turned. Claire was standing barefoot in the doorway, arms folded over a loose cardigan, mascara slightly smudged from whatever emotional theater she'd been prepping. Her confidence had taken a visible hit after my last words, but she still carried that stubborn defiance she always did when she didn't understand what was happening but refused to admit it. "Know what?" she said cautiously. I flipped the envelope open, held up the deed. "That our mother didn't just transfer the condo into your name to help you look stable in your divorce. She transferred it into her name, not yours. This isn't your property. It never was." Her eyes flicked to the paper. Her mouth opened, then closed, and for the first time in maybe ever, I saw real panic on her face. "You're lying." "No," I said. "I'm not." She lunged forward to snatch the envelope, but I stepped back. "Don't," I warned. "I already sent scans of everything to my lawyer. This is just my copy." Claire froze, eyes darting between the paper and my face. Then the anger hit. "She told me it was temporary," she hissed. "She said she was just holding it for me, until the divorce was finalized. That Matt's lawyers would rip me apart if they saw a property transferred directly to me right now. She promised." "Yeah," I said quietly. "She promised a lot of things." The door opened wider behind her. Mom stepped out, tea mug now gone, hands clasped neatly in front of her like she was hosting a church bake sale. "Noah," she said, a little breathless, "please don't misunderstand. This was never about taking anything from you. I only did what I had to do to protect Claire." Claire spun to face her. "Protect me? You lied to me." "I didn't lie," Mom said, trying to sound soothing. "I adjusted the plan. You know how complicated legal things can get. The bank, the title company, the lawyers. It was safer if everything came through me first. But I always intended to transfer it to you eventually." "Oh, that's rich," I muttered. They both turned to me. "You always intended?" I asked. "That's why you never told me? Why you avoided my calls? Why you used my emergency access code to sneak her in and file papers behind my back while I was out of the country?" Mom took a step toward me. "Sweetheart, I did it for the family. You know how much Claire has suffered. She's been through 2 failed marriages. She's alone. She needed something to build her life on." "And what about me?" I asked. I wasn't yelling, but my voice cracked a little. "What do I get?" Her expression softened with what I now recognized as practiced disappointment. "You don't need anything, Noah," she said, as if that explained it all. "You've always been so strong, so capable. I knew you'd understand." And just like that, there it was again. That old, familiar dynamic. The golden child needs rescuing. The capable child needs to just shut up and be fine with it. That was the moment something inside me snapped, not in a loud, dramatic way, not with shouting or threats. It was quiet, like a rope breaking deep underwater, and in its place came a strange calm, a kind of numb clarity. I turned away, said nothing, walked down the hall, left the building. I didn't even stop to think. The next 48 hours were a blur. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I booked a hotel room across town using reward points, sat in silence, and stared at the ceiling for hours on end, going over everything again and again. I'd worked for years to build stability. All those cold nights in offshore ports, all those double shifts, the holidays I'd missed, the birthdays I'd phoned in from different time zones. I'd sacrificed real connection, comfort, even relationships for this life. For that condo. It was more than just a piece of property. It was proof that I'd made something for myself. And they'd stolen it. Just like that. And the worst part? It wasn't some distant scammer or shady business partner. It was family. My own mother. My sister. People I'd trusted, even when they didn't deserve it. I called my lawyer, Kevin, who I'd met through a friend 2 years back during a minor dispute with my HOA. He was calm, methodical, and completely appalled when I laid it all out for him. "Let me be blunt," he said on the phone. "This is fraud. Plain and simple. Power of attorney does not grant someone the right to transfer property to themselves or another party unless it's explicitly authorized. Which, from what you're telling me, it absolutely wasn't." "It wasn't," I confirmed. "I gave her limited authority to manage my bills while I was overseas." "That's it. Then we're going to fight this," he said. "And we're going to win." I should have felt relief. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I felt empty. Because suing your own mother isn't exactly something you dream about as a kid. But then something strange happened. I started to rebuild. Not with grand declarations or fiery revenge plots. Just quietly. Step by step. I took a leave from work, burned some unused vacation days, and added on a personal sabbatical. My boss understood. The company even offered legal assistance, which I declined for now, wanting to keep things personal. I moved into a short-term rental. Small. Furnished. Not ideal, but mine. I joined a gym 2 blocks away. Started waking up at 6 a.m. and running even when I didn't feel like it. Ate eggs and black coffee for breakfast. Read books again. Actual paper books, not PDFs or technical manuals. I stopped checking my phone so much. I turned off all alerts from my family. I reached out to old friends. Went for drinks with a college buddy I hadn't seen in 5 years. We talked about nothing. It felt amazing. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't living in service of anyone else's expectations. And yet, even as I slowly pieced myself back together, the betrayal still echoed. I'd look in the mirror and see the ghost of that moment, standing in my own hallway, realizing I'd been outmaneuvered by the people who raised me. Kevin kept me updated. He filed paperwork, froze the deed transfer, submitted a formal complaint against the notary who'd signed off on the fraudulent documents, and requested a temporary injunction to prevent the condo from being sold or refinanced while the case was under review. "They're not going to take it lying down," he warned me. "Be prepared for that." And sure enough, 2 weeks later, I got a call. From Mom. I stared at the screen for a full minute before answering. "Hello." Her voice was brittle. "I got served." "I know. You're suing me," she said, her voice cracking. "Noah, how could you do this to us?" I almost laughed. "To you? You didn't even give me a chance to explain. I told you it was temporary. You stole my home," I said, barely keeping my voice level. "You forged documents and gave them to Claire under false pretenses. And when you saw a better deal, you transferred it into your own name." "It wasn't like that." "It was," I said. "And you know it." There was a long silence on the other end. "I just didn't want her to suffer," Mom finally whispered. "And what about me?" I asked softer now. "Do I matter?" "At all." She didn't respond. That was my answer. I hung up. And this time, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat on the edge of my bed, exhaled, and said to myself, never again. That night, I started planning the next phase. Because if they wanted to play games with property and paperwork, they had no idea who they were messing with. The thing about hitting rock bottom is that, once you're there, you stop fearing the fall. You stop second-guessing yourself. The hesitation, the guilt, the endless mental loops, they vanish. You stop wondering if you're being too harsh or if you're somehow the problem, because you've already seen the truth. And once you've accepted the truth, that your own mother weaponized your trust and your sister gleefully played along, you start thinking differently. Sharper, colder, like a blade being honed. That's where I was when I walked into Kevin's office the following Monday morning. "I want to take it all back," I told him. "But I also want to make sure they can never do this to anyone else. Not me. Not anyone." He leaned back in his chair, lacing his fingers. "Good," he said. "Because you're not just suing for a property dispute anymore. You're going after power of attorney abuse, fraudulent transfer of title, and depending on what else we find, maybe more." I raised an eyebrow. "What else?" Kevin tapped his laptop, spinning it around to show me something I hadn't seen yet. A copy of a bank statement. "Not mine. Not Claire's. Mom's. This is a subpoenaed account history," he said. "We served a request for financial disclosures since she used power of attorney to handle your assets while you were overseas. She was legally obligated to document everything she did with your funds." He clicked into the document, and there it was. A $12,000 wire transfer from my emergency fund, an account she was authorized to monitor for bills and mortgage purposes, to her own personal checking account, labeled Family Emergency. That wasn't in any of the ledgers she gave me when I came home, I said quietly. Kevin nodded. Because she didn't think you'd look that deep. But she's not careful. She moved money, changed ownership, and filed paperwork all while thinking her status as your mother gave her immunity. He leaned forward. Let's take that illusion away. The setup began with documentation. Every transaction, every code access, every home surveillance file, every text message, voicemail, email. I compiled it all. The Smart Lock app had timestamps going back 6 months, showing Claire entering and exiting the property dozens of times, long before the supposed emergency need arose. Even better, there was a strange uptick in access during late-night hours when the court documents claimed she was residing quietly with her mother due to spousal abuse concerns. That phrase had pissed me off more than anything. Not because I doubted Claire had marriage problems, but because she used such a serious issue as a prop, as a sympathy badge, and now she'd forged a legal trail to justify taking something that didn't belong to her. I brought everything to Kevin. He was already 3 steps ahead of me. She used a false address on her divorce filings, he said, showing me the paperwork. Claims your condo was gifted to her, but her name was never on your title. Not until the illegal transfer attempt. That's perjury. He leaned back, satisfied. She thought she could outsmart the court with a sleight of hand. Let's show the judge the other hand. Still, legal revenge wasn't the only thing I wanted. I wanted them to feel it. The betrayal, the disrespect, the arrogance of believing I'd roll over because I'm the strong one. So I started laying the groundwork for something more personal. First, I reached out to the condo board. Claire had been using my condo as her personal crash pad, but the building had strict rules about subletting, pets, and extended visitors. I compiled the noise complaints, pet incidents. Yes, she had secretly adopted a dog, and reports of smoking on the balcony, which was a fire code violation. I scheduled a private meeting with the HOA chair, an older gentleman named Roy who'd been around longer than any of us. After reviewing the documents, Roy frowned deeply. She told us you'd authorized her to live there, he said. Even signed a statement on your behalf. She forged it, I said plainly. I never gave her permission. His face hardened. We'll take care of it. And just like that, Claire was about to have a rude awakening. Next, I visited the notary whose stamp was on the fraudulent deed. I didn't go in accusing him, just asked questions, pretending I was confirming some paperwork for my files. His nervousness gave him away before I'd even sat down. You're the original owner of the condo? He asked. I nodded. He rubbed his jaw. I remember your mom. She came in saying you were out of the country. She showed a power of attorney form. It looked legit, but I did feel weird about it. I leaned forward. Did you confirm her ID? Did you ask for mine? He shook his head. She said you couldn't be reached. And, well, it was a slow day. I let it slide. I didn't yell. Didn't threaten. Just smiled. You'll probably be getting a call from the court soon. I'd recommend having your documents in order. His face paled. And just like that, another domino wobbled. But the biggest part of the setup came from someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Matt, Claire's now ex-husband. I found him through a mutual friend, and after a couple awkward messages, we agreed to meet for coffee. He was thinner than I remembered, hair a little grayer, face more tired. But as soon as I sat down and told him what had happened, he laughed hard. Unbelievable, he said, sipping his espresso. Actually, no. Totally believable. That woman's got more nerve than 10 lawyers combined. You think she planned this while still married? He nodded. Probably. She was obsessed with winning. Divorce wasn't about freedom. It was about leverage. She needed to walk away looking like the victim and the powerhouse. Having your place under her name, even temporarily, gave her an upper hand. She kept saying, I'll show them I'm fine without him. Over and over. I shook my head. And my mom helped her. Matt's expression turned serious. Your mom always treated Claire like porcelain. It used to creep me out. Like, I'd make a joke at dinner, and your mom would jump in to defend her before I even finished the sentence. I nodded slowly. Matt leaned forward. You're doing the right thing, Noah. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking otherwise. They're a team, but a sloppy one. Before we parted ways, he sent me some old text threads between him and Claire from around the time of the condo switch. Messages like, Mom says it'll be mine in a few months anyway, and he's too far away to do anything. I printed every one of them. They'd soon be evidence. The final piece of my plan came in the form of a quiet, humiliating reversal. I contacted the building manager and explained everything. Once he confirmed the fraud, he offered to change the unit's digital locks and restrict access only to those authorized by court order. When I asked him to time the lock reset for a specific date, he raised an eyebrow. Why then? Because I want to be there when it happens, I said. I want to see her try to open the door. Revenge, huh? I didn't answer, just smiled. The same smile I wore that night Claire laughed in my living room. The same smile I wore when I learned about the forged deed. The same smile I'd wear when everything they built came crashing down. Because this wasn't just a lawsuit. This was the end of a pattern, and I was the one ending it. The day of the reversal was warm and bright. One of those painfully ordinary spring mornings where birds chirped a little too cheerfully, and the world just seemed to go on like nothing was wrong. Like it hadn't watched me get stabbed in the back by the very people I'd once called my family. I parked across the street from my condo complex around 10:15 a.m., sipping black coffee from a paper cup, sunglasses on, watching the building like a stakeout detective in a B-list drama. It was the first time I'd been back since I left the envelope in my hand and walked away from my own home. The plan was already in motion. Kevin had filed everything with precision. We'd obtained a court injunction halting any legal claims to the property and reversing the fraudulent deed transfers. Thanks to the overwhelming paper trail of forgeries, lies, and financial abuse, the court moved fast. Faster than I expected. Power of attorney, revoked. Deed transfers, voided. Ownership, restored to me. The smart lock was set to update at 10:30 a.m. sharp. The HOA was already notified. Security would be on standby, just in case. All that was left was the show. At 10:27, I saw Claire's white SUV pull into the circular drive. She stepped out in a rush, phone clutched to her ear, sunglasses on, purse swinging from her shoulder like she was late for brunch. Her dog, a yappy little Pomeranian she wasn't allowed to have in the building, sat in the passenger seat, barking like it had something important to say. Claire didn't look worried. She looked busy, comfortable, like a woman who thought the world was still her stage. I watched as she strolled up to the front door, tapped in the access code like she'd done 100 times before, and froze. The lock didn't budge. She tried again, slower this time, looked down at the keypad, frowned, and entered the numbers again. Still nothing. I could see the confusion beginning to spread across her face like ink in water. She stepped back, muttering something into her phone, then tried the code a fourth time. Click. Red light. Denied. At exactly 10:33, the front desk staff approached her, polite but firm. I couldn't hear the conversation from where I sat, but I saw the moment it hit her. Her shoulders stiffened. Her mouth opened, then snapped shut. She gestured wildly. The staff member pointed at a document, probably the injunction, then nodded toward the security camera above the door. Claire stared up at it. Her mouth twisted into a look I'd seen too many times before, disbelief curdling into rage. She called someone, and I already knew who it was. My phone buzzed seconds later. MOM. I let it ring. Then again. Then again. Finally, I picked up. Noah, Mom said, voice clipped, as if she'd just been interrupted in the middle of a spa day. Why can't Claire get into the condo? She's locked out. The building is saying something about a reversal order. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence sit. Then I said, because it's not hers. Her breath caught. You can't just kick her out. She lives there. She's built her life there. She built her life on lies, I said calmly. And so did you. You're being vindictive. No, I said. I'm being clear. You didn't have to go this far. We're family, Noah. Exactly, I said. And family shouldn't steal, or lie, or use each other as pawns. She paused, then said something that genuinely made me laugh. We did it to help you. Help me. I scoffed. By robbing me blind. Filing forged documents. Wiring money out of my account. Silence. I know about the $12,000, I added. Her voice dropped. I was going to pay it back. Sure, I said. Right after you transferred the condo to Claire, right? Still silence. Mom, I said softly, it's over. The court reversed the transfer. You've both been removed from the property. The HOA is pursuing fines for violations. And you'll be hearing from my lawyer again soon. This time for restitution. She tried to argue, tried to deflect, but her voice was weaker now, smaller. She knew the game was up. And for once, I didn't let her off the hook. I ended the call. 3 days later, I returned to the condo. Alone. The locks had been changed. The place smelled different, airless, stale. Claire had left it a mess. Dishes in the sink. Dog hair on the couch. A few plants, wilted and dry, abandoned by the window. But it was mine again. I walked through the room slowly, like I was meeting an old friend I hadn't seen in years. I touched the countertops, opened the cabinets, picked up one of the picture frames she hadn't bothered to take. Me, in my 20s, grinning next to the newly hung balcony lights I'd installed myself. I stood there for a long time, staring at that younger version of myself. He'd trusted people who didn't deserve it. He'd thought loyalty would always be returned. He'd believed family meant something sacred. But now he knew better. The court case moved forward like a freight train. Claire tried to fight the perjury charges, but the text messages with Matt, the surveillance footage, the financial logs, they stacked against her like bricks. Her own divorce lawyer testified that she'd presented questionable documents during the proceedings. Matt, bless him, provided everything I needed and more. As for my mother, her misuse of power of attorney alone was enough to bring her under formal investigation. The wire transfer, the forged title transfer, the notary's reluctant testimony, all of it built a case that couldn't be spun as a misunderstanding. She tried to play the sympathy card in court, tears, shaky hands, the whole performance. But the judge saw through it. So did the jury. So did everyone. By the end of it all, Claire was slapped with fines, legal fees, and a black mark on her record. My mother was ordered to repay the stolen money in full, along with a formal apology issued under court supervision. They lost more than property. They lost credibility. They lost control. They lost me. I didn't return to my condo right away. I took a 2-week trip to Scotland, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. Hiked the Highlands. Ate terrible gas station sandwiches. Took Polaroids of foggy cliffs and ancient castles. Let the wind scream through my jacket and the silence settle into my bones. When I came back, I started fresh. I sold the condo. Used the proceeds to buy a modest little house in a quieter part of town. One with a backyard, real sunlight, and no shared walls. I built a workshop in the garage. Planted mint and rosemary in the garden. Slept in peace. I blocked my mother's number. Claire tried to text a few times. Apologies. Excuses. Even a "you went too far." I never answered. Because you can't heal in the same place that broke you. And sometimes, the cleanest break is the one where you walk away and don't look back. In the end, I didn't burn bridges. I demolished them. Then I built something better where they used to stand. And that was the best revenge of all.